40 years of putting your family first, and the one time you do something for yourself, they call it a problem. My name is George Bates. I'm 68 years old. I live in Naperville, Illinois, the west side off Hobson Road, in a neighborhood called Stillwater. I've lived on the same street for 22 years. Same house. Same yard. Same man. I worked 34 years in industrial supply management, retiring as the director of procurement for an international distributor. Got up before the sun 6 days a week. Drove a sensible car, always sensible. My wife Maggie will tell you, I wore the same brand of boots for 12 years because I didn't want to spend the money on myself while the kids were in school. What the kids didn't realize was that every bonus check, every stock option, and every dollar I saved by living modestly went straight into a brokerage account. I didn't flash my money, but I maxed out my investments for 3 decades. That's who George Bates was. My 68th birthday fell on a Thursday in late June. Maggie made my favorite grilled steak, mashed potatoes, and roasted vegetables, and her lemon icebox pie that she only makes twice a year. Jake and Chloe called. Nice calls, short calls. The kind of calls that feel warm until you realize they lasted 4 minutes combined. But that's fine. They're busy. I understand. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that 3 days before my birthday I had walked into Naperville Autohaus on Route 59 and signed papers on a 2024 BMW 7 Series, mineral white, black interior. Every feature of that model line I'd looked at on their website for 6 years without ever letting myself click request a quote. $85,000. I paid cash. I drove it home and sat in the driveway for 11 minutes before I went inside. Just sat there, ran my hand across the steering wheel, looked at the stitching on the seats, listened to the quiet. I felt like a man. I don't say that lightly. I'm saying I felt, for the first time in longer than I can name, like I had done something for George. Not for the household, not for the kids' college funds, or the roof replacement, or Chloe's car insurance that I'd been paying since she was 17. For me. I should have known that feeling wouldn't last long. Welcome to Dad's Raw Revenge. Hit that like button. Drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from. This story is going to take you somewhere. Chloe came by on a Saturday morning, 4 days after my birthday. She wasn't expected. She just showed up the way she does, pulled into the driveway and stopped. I heard her car, looked out the kitchen window, and saw her sitting there, not moving, just staring at the BMW like it had said something rude to her. I smiled. Went out to the porch with my coffee. Morning, sweetheart. She got out of her car slowly. Her eyes didn't leave the BMW. Dad, pause. What is that? That's a 2024 BMW 7 Series, baby girl. Isn't she something? You. She turned to me. You bought that? I did. When? Last week. Birthday present to myself. She walked around it once like she was a detective, and the car was a crime scene. I stood there, still smiling, still holding my coffee, still feeling like a man. Dad, this car is... She stopped, pressed her fingers to her forehead. How much was this? I took a sip of my coffee. 85,000. The sound she made wasn't quite a gasp, wasn't quite a word. It was somewhere in between. She pulled out her phone before she even got back to her car. I watched her drive away, watched her dial before she even reached the end of the street. I already knew who she was calling. Jake showed up the next morning. Chloe was with him. They hadn't called ahead. They never do when they're coming together. I've noticed that over the years. When they call, it's casual. When they show up together unannounced, it means they've talked. It means there's an agenda. Maggie was in the kitchen. She caught my eye when we heard them pull up. Her look said, "Just be patient with them." My look said, "I know exactly what this is." They came inside, sat down in the living room. Jake on the couch, Chloe in the chair nearest the window, the same chair she sat in since she was 9 years old. I sat across from them. Nobody said anything for a moment. Here we go. Jake leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Dad, we want to talk about the car." I figured. $85,000, Dad. He said it like I'd spent it on something embarrassing. It's a fine automobile, Jake. That's not the point. He glanced at Chloe. She took that as her cue. Dad, we're worried about you. She folded her hands in her lap. You're 68. You should be protecting your assets. You should be saving, not spending like this. I looked at her. Spending like what exactly? Like. She gestured vaguely, like you have unlimited money. I saved for that car for 6 years, Chloe. That's not. Dad, it's $85,000. I'm aware of the price. I wrote the check. Jake jumped back in. Dad, you're living too large. You know that, right? You need to cut back. There it was. Living too large. I let that sit in the air for a second. Let it breathe. Maggie appeared in the doorway. Can I get anyone something to drink? I just made. Mom, we're talking. Jake, barely looking at her. Maggie's jaw tightened slightly. She looked at me. I gave her a small nod. Jake, she started. Maggie, it's fine, I said. Quiet, let them talk. Jake turned back to me. Dad, you need to be saving that money. For your future. For, he hesitated. For what, son? Finish the sentence. For us, Dad. For the family. What if something happens? What if you need that money later? You're spending it on a car. For us. There it is. That's what this is. You're going to leave us nothing, Chloe said. Quietly, but she said it. I looked at her. Is that what you said? She didn't back down. I'm just being honest. I nodded slowly. Looked at the floor. Looked back up. Maggie was still in the doorway. Her face said, please don't let this turn into something. She said, Dad's been doing so much for this. Let's be gentle. He's worked his whole life, let's not. Mom, we love Dad. But this isn't. Jake, her voice had an edge, just a small one. It's fine, I said again. Calm. Easy. Your mother's right that I've worked hard. But you're right that I need to be more careful. I hear you both. Jake blinked. He expected a fight. You. Okay, good. So you'll return. I didn't say that. Dad, I said I hear you. I'll cut back. I stood up. They stayed for lunch. Jake and Chloe seemed relieved. Satisfied. They thought they'd gotten through to me. They talked, and laughed, and told stories, and drove home feeling like responsible, concerned children who had done something good for their father. Maggie watched them go. She turned to me. She started to say something. I'm fine, Maggie. She studied my face. She knows my face better than anyone alive. She knows the difference between me being fine and me being finished. She went quiet. That night, after she was asleep, I went to my desk in the back office. The small room off the hallway that the kids always called Dad's room, because nobody else was really allowed in it. I sat down, opened my laptop. I pulled up my accounts. 41 active, recurring monthly bills. Some big, some small. All going to the same two people who had just sat in my living room and told me I was living too large. I started with the smallest one. And then I just kept going. Stay with me. Because what happened over the next 6 weeks, I promise you nobody in that house was ready for it. It was the first week of August, when the dominoes started falling. I didn't announce anything, didn't send a text, didn't leave a note on the kitchen counter. I just sat in my chair every evening, drank my coffee, and watched the calendar move. Maggie knew something was coming. She'd seen my face that night after Jake and Chloe left. She'd watched me disappear into my office. She'd heard the keyboard clicking at midnight. But she didn't ask. Maggie has always known the difference between a conversation I'm ready to have and one I'm not. I was not ready. So she waited. And I watched. It started with Jake. Jake drives a 2022 Audi A5. Sharp car. Lease payment. $724 a month. His name is on the lease. My account number is on the autopay. Was on the autopay. I was sitting on the back porch on a Tuesday morning, reading the paper the way I like to. Physical copy. No phone. Just me and the news and whatever birds decide to show up. When my phone rang. Jake, I let it ring twice. Picked up. Dad, his voice had that clipped, tight sound. The sound of a man trying to stay controlled. Did something happen with your bank account? Good morning to you too, Jake. Dad, my car payment bounced. Did something happen with your bank account? I just got an alert from Audi Financial. They said my monthly lease payment was rejected by the bank. Is there a glitch or something? I took a slow sip of my coffee, set it down. Dad, what does he mean? My payment bounced. I've got a late fee on here already. Well, I said, you might want to look into that. Silence, look into. Dad, you pay that. You've always paid that. I know. So what happened? I'm cutting back, Jake. I kept my voice the same temperature the whole time. Room temperature. Not warm, not cold. You told me to. Remember? A longer silence. The kind that has thoughts running through it. Dad, the car payment? Have a good Tuesday, son. I hung up. I picked up my paper. The birds were indifferent. Chloe took a few more days. I always said Chloe was sharper than Jake in certain ways. She picks up on patterns faster. But even she wasn't fully connecting the dots yet. She probably thought Jake's situation was a bank error. A one-time thing. A misunderstanding that Dad would sort out. Then her gym membership got cancelled. Then her Hulu, Netflix, and HBO accounts stopped working in the same 48-hour window. Then her apartment Wi-Fi, which ran through a family plan I'd been paying for since she signed her first lease, went dark on a Wednesday night. She called Maggie first. I heard Maggie's end of the conversation from the hallway. Mom, my internet just stopped working, and my Netflix is gone. And the gym sent me a cancellation notice. Mom, what is going on? Maggie looked up and saw me standing in the hallway. Her face did three things at once. Concern for Chloe, understanding of what I'd done, and a careful neutrality she was trying to maintain in front of both of us simultaneously. Honey, just let me talk to your father, okay? Just give me one day. She hung up. We looked at each other. George, Maggie, the Wi-Fi, George? The gym? She said I was living too large. She's 26. She didn't mean. She meant something. Maggie pressed her lips together, folded her arms, unfolded them. She wanted to be angry at me and she couldn't fully get there, and that conflict was written all over her face. George, her internet is out. She works from home 2 days a week. Then she can call her internet provider and set up her own plan. She's 26 years old. Maggie. George, how much is a Wi-Fi plan, Maggie? What does it run? $60? $70 a month? She can't cover $60 a month? Maggie went quiet. I went back to my chair. By the second week of August, both kids' phones were throttling. They were on my family plan, had been since high school. I didn't cancel their lines. I just logged into the network account and paused their data access. No warnings, no explanation from the carrier, just an instant drop to 2G speeds. Jake called 4 times in one day. The calls were escalating. The first one was confused. The second one was frustrated. The third one was loud. I answered the fourth one. Dad, what is happening? My phone has been buffering all day. I can't load anything. My phone has been buffering all day the second I step away from my desk. I can't even load a map in my car. I'm having to hunt for public Wi-Fi just to send an email. You should probably look into your own plan then. My own, Dad. I'm on your plan. I've been on your plan for 10 years. I know. I'm cutting back. You told me to. I told you to cut back on buying a car, Dad. I didn't mean. You said 41 payments, Jake. I let that land. Watch the silence. You counted them. You came to my house and told me I had too many payments going out. So I reduced them. Those were, Dad, that was different. Those were your personal expenses. A lot of them were yours. Dead silence. There it is. He's starting to understand. How many did you cancel? His voice had changed. The frustration was gone. Something more careful had replaced it. You have a good evening, Jake. Maggie broke on a Friday. I say broke, I mean she came to me the way she does when she's past her limit. She didn't come in hot. Maggie has never been a door slammer. She came in quiet, sat across from me at the kitchen table, folded her hands, and looked at me with those eyes that have been reading me for 40 years. George, please, Maggie. Jake got a notice. A second late notice on the car. If it doesn't get paid in 10 days, they're going to report it. She paused. And Chloe. Chloe called me crying this morning. She can't pay her rent and her own bills at the same time, George, not on what she makes. You know that. I do know that. Then that's actually the problem, Maggie. She's 26. I know she can't cover her own rent. That's the problem. That is the exact problem. Maggie looked at her hands. There are children. They're adults who came to my home and told me I needed to stop spending money on myself. I kept my voice level. I agreed. I stopped. George, you know they didn't mean it like, what did they mean? She didn't answer that. What exactly did they mean, Maggie? Help me understand, because I've been thinking about it for 6 weeks, and I keep coming back to the same word. They used the word us. Jake said I'd leave them nothing. Chloe said I was spending money that should go to them. I leaned forward slightly. At 68 years old, after 34 years of work, after everything in those accounts, they looked me in the eye and made me feel like I'd done something wrong by buying myself a car. Maggie's eyes were wet. She didn't let the tears fall. She just sat there, holding them. I know, she said softly. I know they were wrong. Then let me finish what I started. She looked up. Trust me, I said. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded, barely, just once, stood up, and went back to the kitchen. That was the last time she asked me to stop. Now here's where it gets interesting. My nephew Russell, my brother Carl's boy, lives out in Lissell. He runs into Jake at a sports bar on a Saturday in mid-August. They get to talking. Russell, God love him, has never been able to hold water. He lets it slip that he'd heard from Carl, who'd heard from Maggie, who'd apparently been crying on the phone to Carl's wife when she thought she was just venting. George is locking up the money. He's putting everything into a trust, that's all Russell said. That's all he had to say. Because by Sunday morning, both kids knew. The calls started at 7:42 am. I know because I was already up, already on the porch, already on my second coffee. My phone lit up, and I looked at the screen and felt something I can only describe as a very deep, very quiet satisfaction. Jake, Dad, call me when you get this, it's important. Chloe, Dad, I heard something and I just want to talk, can you call me? By 9 am Jake had called 3 times. By 10 am Chloe was calling Maggie. By noon the BMW was no longer the issue. The visits started that same week. Suddenly Jake was available for Sunday dinner. Suddenly Chloe was stopping by midweek just to check in. They brought things. Jake brought a case of that dark roast coffee I like. Chloe showed up with a cobbler from that bakery on Washington Street downtown that I've mentioned exactly once in my life, which told me she'd been consulting Maggie. I accepted everything graciously, said thank you, sat with them, let them talk. I did not bring up the will. I did not bring up the payments. I did not bring up the beam, the spreadsheet, or the word us. I just let them visit. Let them be warm and attentive, and suddenly remarkably interested in how Dad was doing. And I watched. Funny how inheritance has a way of improving a person's schedule. If you have been listening for a while, drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button while you're at it. And be sure you're subscribed. Maggie served sweet tea and moved quietly between the kitchen and the living room, and said very little. But once, just once, when Jake was talking and not looking her way, she caught my eye from across the room. And she almost smiled. They thought the payments were the punishment. They thought the trust was the scare. They had no idea I hadn't even gotten to the part where I sit them down. That part was coming. And I'd been waiting 22 years to say every single word of it. Some men get even by getting loud. I got even by getting organized. It was a Sunday in early September. I'd picked the day deliberately. Sunday means nobody has work to hide behind. Nobody has a meeting to rush to. Nobody has an excuse to cut the conversation short and promise to circle back. Sunday means you sit, you stay, you deal with whatever's on the table. I called them both the night before. Kept it simple. Come for dinner tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Don't be late. Jake said, Everything okay, Dad? Everything's fine. 2 o'clock. Chloe said, Should I bring anything? Just yourself. I hung up and went to my office. Opened the drawer on the right side of my desk, the deep one, the one that locks. Pulled out a folder I'd been building since June. Sat there for a while, just looking at it. 40 years of receipts, 22 years of payments, 144 pages, printed clean, organized by year, by category, by recipient, by name. I closed the folder, went to bed. Slept like a man with no unfinished business. They arrived together. Jake's Audi, which I noticed he'd managed to catch up on, probably borrowed money from somewhere, pulled into the driveway at 1:58 p.m. I watched from the front window. They sat in the car for about 2 minutes before getting out. They're prepping each other, aligning their story. I opened the door before they knocked. Come on in. Maggie had cooked a massive dish of baked mostaccioli, the edges of the cheese perfectly browned and bubbling, packed with that heavy fennel Italian sausage the kids used to fight over when they were small. The house smelled like a home, like nothing was wrong, like this was any other Sunday in any other September of the last 22 years. We ate first. I insisted on that. Chloe tried to steer the conversation toward the trust twice during the meal. I redirected both times, asked Jake about work, asked Chloe about her apartment, complimented Maggie on the cornbread. Let them eat. Let them get comfortable. Let them think maybe this was just dinner. When the plates were cleared, I stood up. Let's go sit in the living room. I let them get settled. Maggie took her usual chair near the window. Jake and Chloe on the couch, same positions as June, same room, different energy entirely. I went to my office, came back with the folder, sat down across from them, set the folder on the coffee table but didn't open it yet. I want to talk about what you said to me in June. Jake shifted. Dad, about all that. The payments. We didn't realize. I know you didn't. That's actually my fault. I said it calmly. Watched their faces. I never showed you. I never sat you down and made it real. That's on me. I'm correcting that today. I opened the folder. This is a spreadsheet. 41 line items. 22 years. I turned it around and slid it across the coffee table toward them. Take a look at the first page. They both leaned forward. Jake picked it up. I watched his eyes move across the page, watched them slow down, watched the color leave his face. That first column is the payment. Second column is the monthly amount. Third column is how many months. Fourth column, I tapped the table once, is the total. Chloe was reading over Jake's shoulder now. Her hand came up slowly and covered her mouth. I didn't say anything. I let the numbers do the talking. Numbers don't have emotions. Numbers don't get nervous. Numbers just sit there and tell the truth. Jake turned the page. Then the next one. 22 years of payments. Insurance premiums, cell phone bills, rent supplements, gym memberships, streaming accounts, tuition balances, security deposits, medical copays, dental work, car repairs, moving costs, and 112 other things that had flowed quietly from my account to their lives like water they'd never had to think about, because it was always just. There, he got to the last page, the total line. He stared at it. Dad, his voice came out strange, stripped of everything. This says $1.2 million. I said it the way you read a weather report. Over 22 years, give or take. The room was silent, not awkward silent, not angry silent, reckoning silent. Chloe's eyes were wet. She wasn't crying yet. She was at that stage just before, where everything is bright and fragile and one wrong breath tips it over. Jake set the papers down slowly, like they were something delicate now. I never knew, he said quietly. I know you didn't. That's the point. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, looked at both of them. You came into my house in June and told me I was living too large. You told me I needed to cut back. You told me I was going to leave you nothing. I paused. I want to ask you something, and I need you to actually think before you answer. Another pause. Which part of that $1.2 million was living too large? Nobody answered. Good. There is no answer. I bought one car. One. In 40 years of working, I bought myself one car. $85,000. And you sat in this room and made me feel like I'd done something irresponsible. I shook my head slowly. I sat right there, and I smiled. And I agreed with you. But I went to my office that night, and I thought about every single line on that sheet. And I thought, if they think $85,000 for their father is too large, let's find out what they think about $1.2 million for themselves. Jake opened his mouth. I'm not finished. He closed it. I'm not here to punish you. I'm not here to hold this over you. I'm here because I love you both, and I have apparently done you a disservice by making your lives too comfortable to understand what comfort actually costs. I sat back. So here's what happens next. I reached into the folder and pulled out a second document. Cleaner, shorter, my attorney had drawn it up 3 weeks ago. I had my attorney restructure my estate into a revocable living trust. The money is still there for you, but it's protected now. It doesn't just land in your laps. Jake, the trustee won't release a dime to you until you hold steady employment for 2 consecutive years before a dollar releases to you. Chloe, you need to cover your own rent, independently, for 18 consecutive months. Chloe looked up sharply. Dad, I can't. On my salary I can barely. I know. That's not me being cruel. That's me telling you something is wrong with that situation, and the answer isn't my checkbook. I held her gaze. You're 26 years old. You are smart and capable, and you have been robbed of the chance to find that out, because I kept making it too easy. That ends now. Not because I'm angry. Because I love you. Her chin was trembling. The tears finally came. One at a time, quietly, Jake was staring at the trust document. His jaw was tight, working through something. And the payments? He finally asked. The 41. Already cancelled. Permanently, he looked up. All of them? Every one. Dad, my car is your responsibility. It has been for 2 months already. You figured it out. I looked at him directly. Didn't you? He held my gaze, looked away first. Yeah, he said quietly. I did. Right, so you already know you can do it. The room went quiet again. Maggie hadn't said a word. She was sitting in her chair by the window, hands folded in her lap, a cup of sweet tea going cold on the table beside her. She wasn't crying, wasn't smiling. She was just present, the way she'd been through all of it. Steady, like the house itself. I looked at Jake, looked at Chloe. I'm not your enemy. I'm your father. And I'm going to be your father for whatever years I have left. And I intend to spend some of those years driving that car I bought myself and not apologizing to a single soul about it. I let that settle. But I am done being your bank. That chapter is closed. Chloe wiped her face with the back of her hand. Took a breath. Dad, she said. I'm sorry. I really am. But, she gestured at the trust document. This can't be permanent. Right? This is just, you're making a point. We get it. We hear you. I looked at her. It's permanent, Chloe. The temperature in the room changed. Permanent. Jake repeated the word like it was in a foreign language. He picked up the trust document again. Read it again. Set it down hard. Dad, you're telling me you've canceled everything. Everything. And now there's a trust with conditions. And this is just how it is, from now on. That's correct. Because we said you were living too large. Because you came into my house and told me to my face that I was spending money that belonged to you. Jake stood up. Not slowly. Not calmly. He stood up the way people stand up when something is happening inside them that their body can't contain anymore. That's not what we said. Jake, Maggie started. No, Mom, no. He pointed at the document on the table. I have to hold a job for 2 years? I have a job, Dad. I've had a job. What does that even mean? I have to prove it to you, like I'm applying for something. It means you hold it consistently. Without a safety net. Without a... He laughed. But it wasn't a funny laugh. It was the laugh people use when they're too angry for words. So you just decide this? Without talking to us? You go to a lawyer, you restructure everything, you cancel 41 payments, and you sit us down for lunch and hand us a document like we're employees? Jake, lower your voice in my house. I will not lower my... He stopped, pressed both hands to the top of his head. Do you understand what these past 2 months have been? My car payment bounced, Dad. I got calls from the dealer. I had to borrow money from my friend Kevin because I didn't know what was happening with my own finances. Finances I've counted on for years. Finances that were never yours to count on. Silence. Dead. Flat silence. Then Chloe stood up too. And that's when I saw it. Really saw it. The softness was gone. The tears were gone. What was underneath was something harder. You know what, Dad? Fine, fine, she picked up her purse. You want to play it like this? Like we're strangers you owe nothing to. Okay. But don't sit there acting like you're doing us some favor. You didn't do this to teach us a lesson. You did this because we hurt your feelings over a car. Chloe, Maggie was on her feet now. An $85,000 car, Dad. We were worried about you. You were worried about your inheritance. She flinched. Because it landed. Because it was true, and she knew it, and she couldn't argue it, and that made her angrier than anything else I could have said. We're leaving. She looked at Jake. Jake, let's go. Jake was still standing there, still looking at me, something moving behind his eyes that I couldn't fully read. Anger, yes, but something else too. Something younger. Something that didn't want to walk out the door. But Chloe was already moving toward it. And Jake has always followed his sister. He picked up his keys from the side table. Didn't look at Maggie. Didn't look at the folder. Looked at me one last time. I hope the BMW was worth it, Dad. He walked out. The door didn't slam. That almost made it worse. A slam is emotion. A door pulled quietly shut is a decision. I sat there. Listened to the Audi back out of the driveway. Listened to the street go quiet. Then I heard Maggie. She was still standing in the middle of the living room. Her hands were at her sides. Her shoulders were up around her ears. And she was crying, not loudly, not dramatically, just steadily, the way a woman cries when she's been holding it for too long, and the dam finally goes. George. Her voice broke on my name. Just one syllable, and it broke. My babies just walked out. I stood up, crossed the room, put both arms around her. She cried into my shoulder. Her hands gripped the back of my shirt like she needed something solid. They'll be okay, I said quietly, into her hair. They'll be okay, Maggie. You don't know that. I do. I held her tighter. She pulled back slightly, looked up at me. Her eyes were red. Her face was the face I'd loved for 40 years. Every line of it, every worry written in it. What if they don't come back? They'll come back. George, Maggie. I held her face in both hands, looked at her directly. Everything is going to be okay. I promise you. Not today. Maybe not for a while. But okay. I wiped her cheek with my thumb. Trust me the way you've always trusted me. She searched my face, looking for the George she knew. The steady one. The one who had never once in 40 years made her a promise he didn't keep. She found him. She nodded. I walked her to the kitchen. Sat her down at the table. Poured her a cup of tea. Sat across from her in the quiet house that smelled like the remnants of dinner and that berry cobbler nobody had the heart to touch tonight. I built everything in this house. Every comfort, every safety net, every soft landing my children had ever known. I built it. Quietly, without a scoreboard, without a single request for gratitude. 40 years of giving everything to everyone else. One car for myself. And they called it too large. Let them figure it out. They'd land on their own eventually. Or they wouldn't. But that part, for the first time in a very long time, wasn't my problem anymore. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let me know where you're watching from. I will see you on the next one.